In a bustling city where everyone is rushing to their destinations, there are countless unsung heroes whose actions go unnoticed. Among them is a black nurse, a woman who, just a few days ago, had lost her job at a local hospital due to the economic downturn and restructuring. The weight of that loss was still fresh in her mind, and she was struggling to find her footing in a world that seemed uncertain and harsh. With each passing day, she grew more disheartened, but there was one thing that kept her going: her unshakable commitment to helping others. On a warm, sunny afternoon, when the city park was filled with families, joggers, and people walking their dogs, the nurse decided to take a break from the stresses of job hunting. Dressed in her comfortable clothes, she walked through the park, breathing in the fresh air and trying to clear her mind. She had been walking for only a few minutes when something caught her attention. A man, in his late 50s, suddenly collapsed on the grassy area. People around him gasped and hesitated. They didn't know what to do. Some of them pulled out their phones to take pictures, while others stood frozen in place, unsure of how to help. But for the nurse, it was instinct. Without thinking, she rushed over to the man. She knelt down beside him, her heart racing, but her hands were steady. She checked for a pulse. Nothing. His face was pale, his chest still. Panic began to rise in the small crowd that had gathered around them. But the nurse's mind was calm. She had been trained for moments like this, and she knew what she had to do. The park's peaceful surroundings seemed to fade away as she took charge. She placed her hands on the man's chest, preparing for CPR. With each push, she could feel the weight of the situation, but she also felt something else: determination. She wasn't going to let this man die in front of her. Not today. Not on her watch. As the minutes ticked by, the nurse continued her relentless efforts. The crowd watched, some still in shock, others offering words of encouragement. "Come on, you can do it," one person shouted. "Help is on the way," another muttered nervously. But she knew that every second counted, and she didn't waste a moment. A few minutes later, an ambulance arrived, and paramedics rushed to the scene. They immediately took over, but the nurse didn't move. She stayed close, watching intently as they worked. Her mind raced. Had she done enough? Was he going to be okay? The paramedics stabilized the man, loading him into the ambulance, but the nurse stayed by his side for just a moment longer. She whispered a quick prayer for him, hoping that her efforts had made a difference. The crowd began to disperse, and the nurse stood up, brushing off her hands. She had done her part. She didn't need recognition or praise. She simply needed to know that she had helped save a life. Her heart was heavy with relief, but there was also a part of her that wondered if anyone had noticed what she had done. The people who had been watching, had they seen her for what she was, or would she remain just another anonymous face in the crowd? Little did she know that what had just occurred was more than just a rescue. It was the beginning of something life-changing, something that would reveal to her just how connected the world truly is. The man she had saved was no ordinary man, and soon her act of kindness would come back to her in ways she could never have imagined. But for now, as she walked away from the park, she carried with her the quiet satisfaction of knowing that, in that moment, she had been the hero someone needed. And to her, that was enough. As the nurse made her way home, the events of the afternoon replayed in her mind. She had saved a life. She had done what she was trained to do. Yet, as she walked through the streets, a sense of unease settled within her. It wasn't just the lingering frustration of losing her job or the uncertainty of her future. There was something else, something about the man she had saved. She couldn't quite shake the feeling that there was more to the situation than met the eye. The park, once a place of tranquility and healing, had become a strange and haunting memory. The crowd of onlookers had dispersed, and the man was taken away by the ambulance, but a few questions lingered in the nurse's mind. Why had he collapsed so suddenly? Was it really just a medical emergency, or had there been something more? Who was he, really? In the rush of performing CPR, she had never taken a good look at his face, and now she wished she had. As she turned the corner to her apartment building, the nurse noticed something odd. A man was standing near her doorstep, holding a phone in his hand. He wasn't alone. Several other men stood nearby, talking among themselves in hushed tones. They seemed out of place, their clothing more polished and professional than what she typically saw in her neighborhood. One of them, noticing her approach, walked toward her with a calm but purposeful demeanor. "Excuse me, are you the woman who helped the man in the park?" he asked, his voice steady, but with an undercurrent of something she couldn't place. The nurse, still startled by the unexpected encounter, nodded. "Yes, I am. I was just trying to help him." "Why? Is he all right?" The man paused, his eyes scanning her face as if searching for something. Then, he nodded slowly. "He's fine. He's alive. Thanks to you." Relief flooded the nurse's chest, but her curiosity grew. "That's good to hear. But who are you? How do you know about it?" The man smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I work for Mr. Hargrove, the man you saved today." The nurse blinked in confusion. "Mr. Hargrove?" "Yes," the man said. "He's a very important person, and he wanted to personally thank you for what you did." Before she could respond, another man walked up, this one holding an envelope in his hand. The nurse was puzzled. Who were these people, and why were they so interested in her? She had only done what any good person would do, yet here they were, treating her like some kind of hero. "We just wanted to make sure you're all right," the man with the envelope said, handing it to her, "and to offer a token of appreciation for your selfless act." The nurse's fingers trembled slightly as she took the envelope. Inside, she found a check, an unusually large sum of money, and a note that simply read, "For your kindness, Mr. Hargrove wishes to express his deepest gratitude. You saved his life. He would like to meet with you soon." Her heart raced. The check was more than she could ever imagine, more than she had made in an entire year. But something about it felt wrong. She hadn't done this for the money. She had done it because it was the right thing to do. The nurse glanced up at the men who stood there, watching her expectantly. "Is this really necessary?" she asked, her voice unsure but steady. "I don't need this. I didn't do it for the reward." The man who had spoken earlier stepped closer, his expression softening. "We understand. But Mr. Hargrove insists. He's a man of his word. He wants to meet you personally." Still unsure, the nurse looked at the check again, her mind racing. Was this some kind of bribe, or perhaps there was something more going on that she wasn't aware of? She was about to hand the envelope back when the man with the check spoke again, his tone more urgent. "We just want to make sure you're taken care of. Mr. Hargrove can help you find a new job, a better job. This is just the beginning." A new job, better than what she had lost. The offer seemed too good to be true, and the nurse was torn. She had spent so much of her life dedicated to helping others, but could she trust these strangers? Could she trust a man she'd never met? But despite the confusion, there was something compelling about the offer. She had nothing to lose and everything to gain. With a hesitant breath, she tucked the envelope into her bag, still uncertain of what to make of it all. As the men turned to leave, one last thing caught the nurse's attention. The man with the phone. He wasn't just holding it in his hand. He had been taking pictures of her as she interacted with them. Why? What was his purpose? With the weight of the envelope in her bag, the nurse walked into her apartment, her mind swirling with questions. What had she just gotten herself into? The twists in her life were beginning to unfold in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. The real story was only just beginning, and she had no idea how far it would go. The next few hours passed in a blur for the nurse. She had tucked the envelope with the check into her bag and sat down in her small, modest apartment. The soft hum of the city outside seemed distant as she pondered the events that had unfolded so suddenly. Her mind was heavy with thoughts. Could this really be happening? Why would someone like Mr. Hargrove, a man she had never even met, want to reward her so generously for a simple act of kindness? She couldn't shake the feeling that something didn't add up. It felt too much like a setup, too orchestrated. There was no doubt in her mind that the people who had approached her were not ordinary citizens. They had an air of authority, something commanding. It was clear they had money, power, and influence. But why her? Why had they come to her door? She was just an ordinary nurse, trying to find her way after losing her job. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, at least not in her mind. She had simply acted in the moment, doing what anyone with medical training would have done. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on her door. She froze, her heart racing. She wasn't expecting anyone, and after the strange encounter earlier, she wasn't sure if she should open it. With caution, she moved toward the door, looking through the peephole. To her surprise, a black limousine was parked outside, and several well-dressed men stood around it. One of them, the same man who had spoken to her earlier, smiled as he caught her eye. "Miss Thompson, we hope you're well," he said, his tone warm but formal. "Ah, yes, I'm fine," she replied, her voice unsure. What is this about?" "We apologize for the suddenness of our visit," the man continued, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Mr. Hargrove would like to meet you. He's asked us to bring you to him. He wishes to speak with you personally, and he believes it's important that you're there in person." The nurse's heart skipped a beat. Was this really happening? Why was she being treated like this? A part of her wanted to refuse, to walk away from the unknowns that were quickly piling up. But another part, perhaps the part that had saved the man's life in the park, felt a sense of curiosity mixed with a strange pull of fate. She had no idea who Mr. Hargrove was, but this could be an opportunity she couldn't pass up. "Wait, is this some kind of joke?" she asked, trying to steady her nerves. "I mean, I'm just a nurse. I don't even know who Mr. Hargrove is." The man stepped forward, his tone now more earnest. "Mr. Hargrove is a philanthropist, a businessman with significant influence. He knows about your actions in the park today, and he's incredibly grateful for your help. He would like to offer you something that could change your life. He insists that you meet him personally. If you don't mind, we'd be honored to have you join us for this conversation." Her mind raced. A philanthropist, a businessman. She had no idea what was going on, but the curiosity that had been gnawing at her earlier was now overpowering her hesitation. This wasn't just about a thank you. This was something bigger. With a final glance toward her small apartment, the nurse made up her mind. She was going to see this through. Whatever it was, she would face it head-on. She nodded, her voice still hesitant, but now filled with resolve. "All right, I'll come with you." The man smiled again, his expression softening. "Thank you. Please, this way." As the nurse walked out of her apartment, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation settle on her shoulders. The limousine was sleek and black, its windows tinted, and as she got inside, the interior was plush and elegant. The men who had been waiting outside her apartment now joined her, sitting in silence as the car began to drive. The air in the vehicle felt thick with anticipation. The nurse looked out of the window, trying to calm her nerves, but the unfamiliarity of the situation made it difficult. Where was she being taken? Why had she been chosen for this meeting? And what could Mr. Hargrove want with her? After what felt like an eternity, the car finally pulled up to a grand estate, a mansion surrounded by sprawling gardens and ornate gates. The sheer size of it left her in awe. She had seen mansions in movies, but this was something else entirely. It was as though she had entered a different world. "Welcome to Mr. Hargrove's residence," one of the men said as the door opened for her. The nurse stepped out of the car, still in disbelief. She had no idea what she was about to walk into, but she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward whatever lay ahead. She had always believed that acts of kindness had a way of coming back, but she never imagined it would come back like this. As they led her into the mansion, she could feel the tension mounting. The heavy oak doors creaked open, revealing a grand hallway lined with expensive artwork and gilded furniture. It was like something out of a dream, or a nightmare. She had no idea what Mr. Hargrove would say, but one thing was clear. This was just the beginning of something much bigger than she had ever anticipated. The door to a large room opened, and there, standing with a welcoming smile, was the man she had saved. The businessman, Mr. Hargrove. He stepped forward, extending his hand to her. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice deep and sincere. "I've been waiting to meet you." The grand room was filled with a warm, inviting atmosphere, despite the opulence that surrounded her. As the nurse stepped further into the mansion, she couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and disbelief. The marble floors gleamed under soft, golden light, and paintings of landscapes and serene scenes adorned the walls. It was all so extravagant, yet, in a strange way, it felt like she had stepped into a different world. A world far removed from the small apartment and uncertainty that had been her reality just hours before. Mr. Hargrove, the man she had saved in the park, was standing just a few steps away. His expression was calm and composed, but there was something in his eyes, a depth of gratitude that spoke volumes. He extended his hand toward her, and with a slight hesitation, she shook it, still unsure of what was happening. "Miss Thompson, it is an honor to meet you in person," Mr. Hargrove said, his voice rich with sincerity. "I don't think words can truly express how grateful I am for what you did today. You saved my life." The nurse, still trying to process everything, smiled faintly. "I just did what anyone would do. I didn't do it for any reward." "I know," he replied, his gaze softening. "But what you did, it was extraordinary. You acted swiftly, without hesitation, in a moment when most people would have panicked. That's not something you see every day." The nurse nodded, the weight of his words settling in. She had saved a life, yes, but in the grand scheme of things, she had never thought of herself as anything special. She was just a nurse, doing what she had been trained to do. But here she was, in front of a man who had so much wealth and power, treating her like she was someone important. It felt surreal. Mr. Hargrove motioned for her to sit, and a servant quickly brought over 2 glasses of sparkling water. As they sat down in plush armchairs, Mr. Hargrove continued, "You've been through a lot recently, haven't you? Losing your job, not knowing where your next step will take you. I understand what it's like to feel like everything is slipping away." The nurse shifted uncomfortably in her seat, unsure of how much to reveal. "I've had my struggles, yes. But everyone does, I suppose." "That's true," he said, nodding. "But not everyone gets the chance to turn things around in the way you can. I want to offer you an opportunity, something that could change your life for the better." The nurse's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was this the moment when her life would take a dramatic turn? She didn't know what to expect, but her curiosity was piqued. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tentative but eager. Mr. Hargrove leaned forward, his tone serious now. "I'm in a position to offer you something that not many people get. I want to help you find your way back to a career that brings you fulfillment and purpose. And I want to make sure you don't have to worry about money while you're getting back on your feet. This," he gestured to the room, to the lavish setting, "isn't about flaunting wealth. It's about making sure good people like you have the chance they deserve. I've already arranged for you to meet with some of the top healthcare organizations in the city. They're looking for someone with your skills and dedication. All you need to do is show up." The nurse's eyes widened in disbelief. Was this really happening? Just yesterday, she had felt completely lost, unsure of how she would make ends meet or what her future would hold. And now, here she was, being offered the chance of a lifetime. She had worked tirelessly in her field, and now, after what had seemed like the worst day of her life, she was being handed an opportunity she had never imagined. "But why me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I mean, I just did what anyone would do. I didn't expect anything in return." Mr. Hargrove smiled, his eyes glinting with understanding. "Because sometimes the most unexpected people make the biggest difference. You didn't act out of selfishness. You acted out of pure compassion, and that's rare. I believe in rewarding that kind of selflessness. You have the skills and the heart, and I want to make sure you get the opportunity to use them fully. No one should feel like they have to struggle when they've done something so important. Tears welled up in the nurse's eyes as the weight of the moment hit her. For so long, she had felt invisible, unnoticed, and now, out of nowhere, she was being acknowledged in a way she had never dreamed of. It wasn't just the offer of a new job, though that was more than she could have hoped for. It was the recognition, the sense that her efforts had meant something more than she had ever realized. I don't know what to say, she whispered, overwhelmed. This is more than I could ever have imagined. You don't have to say anything, Mr. Hargrove replied, his voice kind. Just know that you've earned this. And the best part, this is just the beginning. As if to emphasize his words, one of the servants entered the room carrying a large ornate box. He placed it in front of the nurse and opened it to reveal something truly astonishing. A set of keys. These are for you, Mr. Hargrove said. A gift from me. A brand new car, fully paid for. It's yours to use as you see fit. No strings attached. The nurse gasped, her mind reeling. A brand new car. This was beyond anything she could have imagined. The weight of the keys in her hand felt symbolic, not just of the car, but of everything that had just shifted in her life. Mr. Hargrove smiled warmly. I know it's a lot to take in, but you deserve every bit of it. You've shown what true strength and kindness look like. It's time for you to rise up and take control of your future. As the nurse sat in stunned silence, holding the keys to her new car, she realized that life had a funny way of turning things around when you least expected it. She had saved a man's life in the park, and in return, her own life had been changed forever.